right.
Hi, my name is George Kasimos. I'm here with Phil Dustan. He's a professor at
College of Charleston.
College of Charleston, and we're going to discuss the James and Johns Island watershed in Charleston, South Carolina.
And this is an area we call the Lowcountry, and we're going to actually understand the Lowcountry a little better when we're done with this.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to reorient the camera just on the maps. So what you'll see is our hands and talking and maybe a pointer or two, and you'll hear us, but you won't see our faces anymore.
Sounds good.
The audience.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So George, here we have James Island, and this is a picture that was pieced together from aerial photographs in 1939.
Okay.
So if you begin to look at it, it's kind of hard to see, but this is the main artery. This is Folly Road, comes down here. This is Folly Beach. And all of this is marshland. Over here is Fort Johnson, and Fort Sumter is over here. And this is what we call the Wapu Cut. This is the Stono River, and over here is Charleston Harbor.
Okay.
So all of this area, if you look in here, was farmland at this time.
Undeveloped.
Undeveloped farmland. And over here we have the heirs properties, these little tiny little areas that were given to freed slaves.
Yep.
And then we have a lot of smaller sharecropper farms over here, and you can see those little lots in here. So over time, a large parts of these areas have been developed, obviously.
Right.
And these areas here that are dark are remaining forests. And very often you'll have a creek that comes in and it ends here, and then it might go out the other way. So these were swamps. These areas were swamplands.
Okay.
What we think of as deciduous swamps. And for example, the Shoreham area, that Shoreham neighborhood is in this area right in here.
It's in it?
Yeah, well it was developed in one of these areas.
Okay.
It was the intersection. You can see how different farms come in, and they all come in and then they stop, and that's the area that was unplantable, undevelopable.
And they backfilled it and
made it a neighborhood. Right.
Okay.
So I just wanted to put this up here to give you some orientation. Okay? All right. Now we're going to pull another map, and this is Johns Island.
Today.
This is a very special kind of map of Johns Island.
That's today, 2019.
That's today, yeah. And what you've got is there are two components, actually three components to this map. One is a LiDAR image in which red is the highest land. It's 25 feet. This is the dune on which Maybank Highway was built.
Okay.
Okay. And then down here we have what we call the airport dune, because the airport ends here. And so we have two dunes, one here, with a valley in between. Now the valley in between is only about maybe 25 feet difference in elevation, but you can see there's this beautiful little creek that runs in it. And that's called Burden Creek, named after Kinsey Burden, who had a plantation out here. And over here is Bohicket Creek. So on one end we have Bohicket Creek, on the other end we have Burden Creek entering into the Stono River. So we have this very low-lying area. And if you look at the way we have all this anastomosing, it reminds me of the Amazon River. It really is. It's a tiny little ephemeral river. And
what's the average elevation? So this is about 25 feet. This is about 20 feet, say, right?
Yeah, about 20
And what is
feet.
around this area?
This area in here is less than 10, 12 feet.
So which way is the beach?
The beach is this way.
Okay, the beach is this way.
The beach is this way, yeah, this way.
Okay. So now when you get a surge, which way is the water going?
Well, when we get a storm surge, the water comes in through here, and the water comes in through here.
Okay, so it pushes,
because this dune is going to protect us. So we get the storm surge coming in and wrapping around and coming in from both sides. Okay? And this area over here will actually hold water sometimes. We have data that shows that. Well, these little blue lines that you see are from a process that was developed by the U.S. Geological Survey called path flow analysis, or flow path analysis.
Okay.
If you know the height of the land within a very high resolution, and these data come from 1 meter spatial resolution and about 2 to 4 centimeter vertical resolution.
Okay.
So we're saying roughly a square yard,
right,
and plus or minus 2 inches.
Okay. I mean, this is tight.
All right. So if you know that, you can calculate the angle of the slope of the land and the direction water will flow.
Gotcha.
So it starts in the high and it runs down into the low.
So these little blues aren't actually rivers, but this is when you get rain, this is the way the water's going to flow.
This defines the surface flow.
So for instance, why is this one so straight?
That's a canal.
Okay.
That's a drainage canal. There's a neighborhood up here, and this is a drainage canal coming out of this higher area.
And everything's kind of feeding into the canal.
Everything's feeding into
Okay.
this canal. You can see it all feeding in. This one over here comes from Maybank and comes down this way, the natural flow path.
Right.
Here's another canal that comes in this way. And this dotted line defines the watershed for Burden Creek.
Gotcha.
So from the water, anywhere it falls from here, it comes out of this creek. Okay?
Or backfeeds when there's a storm surge.
Or can backfeed in when there's a storm surge. And there's a road that cuts across here called Plow Ground Road that runs approximately like here. And Plow Ground Road sort of divides this from this.
Gotcha.
There are bridges for here.
Okay.
Now when you drive along Plow Ground Road, all you see is forest. You don't see any of this. Because the forests have filled into all of this land.
Gotcha.
All right, this is where fresh water comes. As I was going to say, when it hasn't been raining, this is pretty much tidal up to about here. But when it rains, the fresh water pushes that water out.
Gotcha.
Okay? Now, this area over here is heavily developed with what we call PUDs, planned unit developments. These are the new fill and build developments. This area over here has traditional developments and a few PUDs, but it's mostly smaller traditional homes with, like, you know, one-off, two-off houses built on larger lots. And this area here is forested. So this sets up an experiment that we can do. If we monitor the water coming off here and the water coming off here and the water coming off here, we can begin to understand the impact of this development on the dynamics of water, on flooding, right?
Gotcha.
And if you pass me that piece of paper that's over there, right. This is from the latest hurricane we had, Dorian.
Right.
This is the rainfall. This is a time running here from before Dorian to about a week and a half past Dorian.
Gotcha.
And these ups and downs are tidal signals. Okay?
Okay.
So the rainfall comes here. We get about 6 inches of rain. This instrument was right here. I'll move this over a little bit so we can see. That instrument was right here, and we see the flush coming off of this land. And then this instrument that measures this bump here was right here at Burden Creek.
Okay.
Okay? So the water flashes off of here where the developments are, comes down this creek,
Right.
and then we see it coming out here.
So what you're saying, so what this bump is, correct me if I'm wrong, is there was really no tide. There was really no tide going in and out. It was just water coming
This
down.
is water coming out. The water came out so forcefully that it overran the tidal signal. And then for days afterwards, you can see how this is truncated.
Yep.
What it was doing was there was fresh water under the tide that kept pushing out.
Gotcha.
And our data shows that this is fresh water almost all the way out to here. So what this shows is that this highly developed area has a lot of runoff that's flash, and then it doesn't hold any water.
And how many days is that?
Well, each one of these, 2 for a day.
2 for a day.
So
So for
2
5 days, it's still
Right, for
water.
5 days, water's still coming off. Now, let's go over here to the older development. We see a similar pattern, but we see a much reduced bump coming out. Now, you see how this is reduced here, the tides?
Yeah.
The storm was actually pulled water out of the harbor, and that's what saved Charleston from flooding, because we were on the side of the storm that pulled it out.
Right.
So over here, the amount of water coming off of this developed watershed totally overblows that. Whereas here on this older traditional development, you can see
It was actually
an effect,
lower.
right? And then if you look at the forested development here, there's almost no impact.
Right.
So we know that a parking lot, all right, a parking lot with 1 inch of rain will shed about 27,000 gallons of water.
How big of a parking lot?
1 acre.
1 acre.
1 acre of forest will shed 500 gallons. So what we're seeing here is a couple hundred acres of highly developed land that has been filled and built and made impervious.
So this is normal.
Yeah, this is normal.
Where during the storm, the tide actually got lower and there was less flooding actually
Yeah.
because the water got sucked out of the bay. And the water got sucked out of the bay on this side, but because the water was coming in from the development, it actually came in super high. Is that correct?
Exactly. In other words,
Understood.
this is like a parking lot,
Yep.
and this is like a forest.
Yeah.
And you can see a little bump here,
Yeah.
okay? But for the most part, what you've got is this massive water. And this is demonstration that these fill and builds, when you put a bunch of them together, actually cause flooding.
Right.
Okay? So this is a really cool map of this.
Yeah.
All right? Now, let me show you something else. You asked the elevation of the land. So I have gone through and mapped out all the lands that are low in the Burden Creek Basin. So this is land that's like on the order of 10, maybe 12 feet maximum.
Okay.
And it's in purple. So look at this area. Now imagine if we had a storm surge coming in here,
Okay.
say 10-foot storm surge, and we know a 9-foot storm surge in Charleston will flood downtown and it will flood this road here.
Right. I'm listening, go ahead.
So imagine we get a category 2 or a category 3 storm that comes in here and pushes a 10 to 12-foot storm surge and 10 or 15 inches of rain. This is the area that's going to get flooded.
And the issue is you almost have a sandwich effect where you have water coming in from here, water coming in from here, and now you just have two berms. It's like an alleyway.
Right, and the water has no place to go. Now this berm out here, this airport dune, will protect us from the storm surge, the major part of the catastrophic storm surge and the winds.
Right. You're not going to get a velocity wave. You're going to get gradual rising from the storm surge.
And the Dutch dialogues actually say keep this natural. This
Right.
is a priceless defense
Right.
barrier. To build a barrier like this across Charleston, they said was $35 billion, and you have it naturally.
Right. So correct me if I'm wrong. What's the elevation of this area again?
This area, all the purple that you see here,
Yes.
is maximum 12 feet.
So if you get a 12-foot storm surge, everybody's flooding unless you're significantly
That's
above
right.
the BFE.
That's
All
right.
the
And-
older
and-
homes are gone.
That's right. And if you look on NOAA sea level rise, if you raise sea level like 6 feet, this is what happens. And a category 3 storm would flood this area out. A category 5 storm would only leave this area on Johns Island.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. You're talking just the surge portion. What if it rained 12 inches and you had a category 3?
Well, if you have surge and you have rain pouring off of these developments,
Right.
then this gets flooded out more. Then what happens is it begins to break through here and flood these developments. It begins to break through these ways. Because notice it's low here except for the road. So once you breach the road, then this development gets flooded out.
Gotcha.
So what this does is it creates a catastrophic bowl, Katrina type impact.
Well, the water will take months to get out.
I don't know about months, but a long time.
3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. Now this is what we raised in 2006 when I was on the Johns Island Growth Management Committee.
Right.
And we raised this to the city, and the city developer said no developments below 14 feet elevation, and they bumped that up in the plan to 15 feet.
Okay.
So they said no developments. Now what's happening is this whole area is up for development.
Which is
So-
12 feet.
Which is 12 feet. So the city, or less. So the city actually violated
Their own thing.
their own thing. And I want to give you...
Is that because there's no more viable, easy to build land that's 15 feet?
There's no
Is
more
that-
cheap land.
Uh-huh.
Here, now I want to show you this map. Because this is sort of a summary map. This is a little bit hard to see, but here's Maybank Highway.
Yep.
And here's the airport dune.
Yep.
The gold color in here are developments that have been built on higher ground, above about 12 feet.
Okay.
The yellow, are recent developments from the mid-90s that have been built in lower areas. So what's happened is the entire flanks of this dune system have been built out. And now they're moving down into here. Rich and I just looked at a series of plans that want to develop this area here with about 250 houses or so. So they're moving down, and then over here they want to build 600 or 700 houses. And then the most egregious of all is Oakville, which is out here, which I'll show you, which is the craziest of all because it's right in harm's way.
And they all are they all proposed fill and builds, or are they
Yes,
going to be?
they're all fill and builds.
They're all fill and builds. So what you're
They're
doing
all fill
is
and builds.
when that water backfeeds or the rain comes in, there's no place for it to go when it's high tide.
Exactly. Now let me show you this example. So this is River Road. This is Burden Creek that comes out here. All right? We are right here. This is my house. This is a proposed development called River Run. We'll start here, and come out across this creek area, which they say is a tributary to the creek. They don't recognize that it's actually the creek before the ditch was dug. And this will be fill and bill. And there will be on the order of 7,000 to 10,000 dump trucks full of fill dirt here. And when this happens, when a storm surge comes in here and the water comes off the airport, this area we know holds water and it floods out this way to the creek. So we know that there's water mass here. When we had Hurricanes Irma and Matthew, we had 3 feet of water on here for about 8 hours. So now you're going to have 300 to 400 homes in here that are trapped.
With higher elevation.
With higher, but they're trapped.
Right.
And what it's going to do is it's going to essentially form a plug at the center at Burden Creek, and it's going to hold more water in the valley, and it's going to divert this water over these areas and flood out these older homes, including my own.
And have they generally flooded in the past, those homes?
No.
Right. So now we're making a new flood pattern is really what we're doing. Now, are those homes currently in the flood zone, do you know?
It's all in a flood zone. It's AE 14 and V zone.
Right, but FEMA should come back after that development's done and remap that area because it's probably higher risk, right?
Now here's Oakville, which is now called River Run. This is a plan drawn from the stormwater plan that the developer submitted. So this is the elevation of the land from 5 feet up to 10 feet, drops down to 6, 5, 4 feet.
Okay.
This is the elevation of AE 14. That's 14 feet. This is where the houses would be at 15 feet, BFE plus 1. Okay?
Right.
This is the current height of the land where I live, here, which is right next door. These are the retention ponds that they would put in. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, if they fill up to here, out to here, that's over 1 million cubic yards of dirt. That's something on the order of 10,000 dump trucks of dirt. The retention ponds would be built in fill dirt. The plan says that the water table is at minus 5 feet, when in fact the water table is usually about here. It's minus 2 or 3 feet. It's essentially a water table.
Right.
This land is low. So if they went to this land, they'd have to muck out, say, 2 to 4 feet and then fill from here up into here. The retention ponds would be in fill dirt, and the base, their drain, would be below the water table.
So there is no drain.
So there is no drain. Exactly. And if a storm surge comes in at 9 or 10 or 12 feet.
So they're manipulating the data to basically say this is how it's going to work, but in reality, there is no way for that water to drain at
Exactly. There is no way for these retention ponds to work. And we know that this area actually holds water.
So all these ponds really do is take the dirt out to elevate everything else. Is that correct? And so they're going to take all this dirt out, bring the elevation up to 14, but the water is going to be, where's the water going to be?
The water would probably be, if this is the elevation, it would probably be about here.
Right, and they're saying all this extra space is...
Well, they're saying the rim is at 9.5 feet.
Right.
So it's unknown to me how many slab-on-grade houses they're going to build or how they're going to manipulate this property.
Right, but all this water is going to be coming onto your property and the other development.
Right, this will be displacing water. Right, so in other words, if there were a 12-foot surge, there would be this much water there.
Right. Where's that going to go?
Where's that going to go? Right.
And it's not going through the plug down here.
Right. Now, this is a map that we put together, and we've taken this to meetings. And we've taken it to meetings to ask for input from local residents. So what you see, these little gold dots here, each one of these is a development. And each one of these is a citizen saying, hey, it floods here, it floods here, it floods here, it floods here, it floods here.
Okay.
So in some cases, these developments act as a dam and prevent water from draining and flood the property upstream. And in some cases, they generate more runoff and flood the property downstream.
Right.
But what they really do is they just alter the flow of water, both subsurface and on the surface, and then they alter what they call the water balance of the land because the trees aren't there anymore. And so they put sod in its place. And sod on top of this impervious clay is impervious.
It might as well be concrete.
Right, might as well be concrete. Just pave the whole thing.
So correct me if I'm wrong, depending if you get a storm surge or a rain event, different communities will flood in different manners because the water's not acting as one bit. It's all interrupted. The water flow is interrupted, so it will act differently.
Exactly. And this is happening because depending upon the rain and where it comes from and when it does, different neighborhoods will flood. In other words, it's a non-linear situation. It used to be predictable based on the flow path
Of course.
and the elevation, and now it's a non-linear situation. And all of these little pock marks that you see,
Yeah.
these are dirt mines. And they're all over Johns Island.
And what are they?
That's where they mine the dirt to build the developments if they don't have enough from the retention ponds.
Right.
People that live around those dirt mines are having their septic tanks fail, their wells are failing, and their houses are subsiding.
Oh,
Because it's
sucking
changing
it's
the
sucking
water.
the water
Right,
out.
it's changing the water. So this is a really complex, dangerous situation.
Well, so here's the thing. If they're building a big hole in the ground,
Yeah.
wouldn't that hold the stormwater?
Well, it's not empty though.
Exactly, because
Because
the groundwater fills
the
it up
groundwater
again,
fills it
right?
in, right.
So in reality, it's not displacing anything.
Right.
It's only elevating the ground, which that elevated ground is going to displace more water. Is that correct?
Right.
So
Right.
you're just adding more of a problem when you
Right.
build these fill and build developments.
Right, exactly. And in a place like this, you're just compounding all the problems we have. So anyway, that's a quick primer on Johns Island and the situation of fill and build.
I appreciate it. I'd like to hear how things are going to go in the future, and anything you can get, anything we could help to raise awareness, not only in Charleston, South Carolina, but nationally. These problems are occurring everywhere, not just in Houston, not just in Carolina, and we're actually making more flood zone problems. You happen to be on the coast in Air Island, but these are happening in 600 feet above sea level in Pennsylvania.
Right.
When they build these communities and they don't think about stormwater management, and that's a very, very problem. We're making flood zone problems by not building correctly.
Right. What we need to do is recognize that the water has a water balance, and we need to preserve that water balance. So if we build in that land, what we need to do is just say, how do we preserve the water balance?
And keep it flowing the way it was flowing
And
before.
keep it flowing the way it was before. It's not a matter of, well, we can elevate so high, we can elevate so low, we can do this. We can do that to protect our houses from flooding, but at the same time, that land will generate floods for people downstream or upstream if
Right.
we don't keep the water balance.
Right. And in some cases, correct me if I'm wrong, if we just thought about it before we did it, it might not even cost more money in some cases. If you build a channel from, if you said this is the natural flow of water, let's just build a little flow of water here, make it a water view for some homes, and this way the water from these two communities exchange. This is how they exchange
That's
water.
true. But the other thing we have to realize is this runoff is toxic to the marsh. This extra fresh water has reduced oxygen in it, and it's toxic to the marsh. And the marsh is really the habitat where every commercially and recreationally important species of fish and shellfish has some part of its life cycle.
Well, in the marshes.
So if we destroy the marsh, we destroy that thing that we love about the Lowcountry, and the marsh protects us from storm surge.
From storm surge. That
Right.
I know. I know the marsh is one of the biggest storm surge natural protectors
Right.
out there. It is.
Right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Very, very informative.
Sure. You're welcome.